Hello and welcome to the Art and Business and Murals podcast. And I am your host, Sarah Scully. And today we are talking about a topic that is not really art or business or murals, but it is kind of overarching over all of them. Because without you functioning properly, the art, the business, the murals does not exist. So today we are talking about perimenopause, ASD, ADHD, and burnout, and my story and the tools that have helped me. So I'm going to start this with a disclaimer because I'm trying to be as sensible as possible, and I've written it down because that's what a sensible person does. So before we begin, I want to say that this episode includes discussions around mental health, perimenopause, and suicide statistics. I'll be sharing my personal experience, but I'm not a medical professional. This episode isn't intended to provide medical advice. If anything, if this conversation resonates with you or raises concerns about your own mental health or well-being, I strongly encourage you to speak with your GP or qualified healthcare professional. So, if you do not have a uterus, let's just go straight to it. If you do not have a uterus, or you have a uterus that is quite young, you might be like, not listening to this episode. Why would I? Stop. I think that you should, because I guarantee you know someone, your mum, your sister, your partner, your friend, your auntie. I guarantee you know someone that's going through this. And I know for a fact that there are so many people going through this and they don't talk about it. And this is the reason why I'm doing this episode, because no one told me this was coming. No one warned me about it. I couldn't set up my business to keep running in the background while I quietly by myself lost my marbles over here. So this is why it's important for you to know about it. Even if you're a man, even if you're in your 20s or 30s, I think it's important to understand what other people are going through and to also prepare yourself. I wish that someone had told me about this in my 20s and 30s so that I could have prepared better to to lose my marbles. No, I would have put more systems into place. I would have had my business running more so by itself rather than needing my ongoing support. That's what I wish I could have done so that I didn't have to always be worrying about showing up for work when I just needed to stay in bed. So, oh, this is such a fun topic. Let's take bets on how many times I cry. It's okay to cry. And so there's a couple reasons why I'm doing this episode. Wait, I've got notes, but I'm jumping all over the place already, and we're only like 5 minutes into this episode. And let me preface this also by saying a few things. I have tried to, and I'll talk about this in a bit more detail a bit lower down, but I've increased my progesterone this week. So I'm trying to take the right amount of progesterone because I've previously been taking half the amount, and it is giving me pretty severe anxiety. So right now I'm having like heart palpitations and I am not enjoying it. So if I seem a bit out of whack, this is why. I'll talk about the medication I'm on a little bit later on. Again, I'm not a medical professional. This is just my story. So your story will always be different. Everyone's story is different. Um, and so that's going on. So if I seem a bit weird and jumpy and on edge, that's why. Also, it is Sunday. This episode comes out at 6 a.m. tomorrow, Monday. So, as you can tell, I've left it to the last second, and it's not by choice. I started to record this on Friday. Again, still leave it to the last second, but and then I got interrupted because I had an appointment I had to run to, and then the day just got gulped up because I have a huge mural project on this week. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm painting a massive mural on the front of a building on the main road in the center of Brisbane. And it's school, so there's still students going in and out of the school. There's staff. I've got 5 assistants working with me over those days. We've got road closures. I've had to organize. Oh, it's actually 2 murals. It's the outside of the building and then one large one on the inside of the building. So I've been organizing scaffolding to be delivered and then put together because it's higher than 4 meters. So I don't have the tickets to put the scaffolding together. So organizing that and then cutting massive stencils. That was my Friday, and that's why I lost all my time. And then drawing up the stencils and buying the paint and picking up the paint. And then I got to mix the paint tomorrow at some point. And anti-graffiti, I apparently all the anti-graffiti on the Sunshine Coast has been purchased. I did find out the last person to buy the big bucket, and Joel. If you've listened to the zookeeper interview, Joel, I know it was you. You may get a frantic phone call from me tomorrow if I'm not able to find some other anti-graffiti somewhere on the Sunshine Coast. So these are the bits and pieces that are all coming together. And so my days have been taken up with that. And then, of course, I'm like running through in my brain the step by steps, particularly around safety and getting the project done and watching the weather like some kind of crazy weather person. So all of these things feel like they're sitting on top of me. And because I've been taking the extra progesterone, everything else kind of feels heavier than it usually does. So if I'm showing up as a bit of a shit show, I am sorry. I did question whether I should do this episode, and I spoke to probably about 10 different people. Some of them were marketing people. These are all friends. Some of them are in marketing, some of them are in branding, some of them are artists, some of them are professionals, some of the, like I just spoke to so many people questioning whether I should do this episode or not. And every single person said yes. So, yes, it's off the topic, but I've built this platform for myself. So I'm going to stand on my soapbox and I'm going to tell you about this topic that you need to know about because every single human with a uterus is going to go through this. And yes, your experience might be different to mine. It might be an easy breezy experience, much like my mum. She didn't notice she went through it. Mind you, she was on chemotherapy and had cancer at this point in her life. So she thought it was the chemotherapy that was knocking her around. It could have been perimenopause. Who knew? Um, and maybe you'll have a nice, easy experience, or maybe yours will be a bit of a shit show like mine, or maybe it'll be a mix of other things that happen to you. It's not one size fits all, but you need to know it's coming so that you don't hit perimenopause and think that you're going insane because you don't know what perimenopause is, because that was me. Um, so I hope this episode helps, and I'm going to try really hard not to cry in chunks of it because I feel like crying now. So I'm just having one of those stupid progesterone. I'm just having one of those days. And because I've left this recording to the last second, I have no choice but to record it. So wish me luck. Everyone wish me luck. Okay, I do have very general notes. So we'll see if I can stick to them and make sense. I'm not feeling hopeful about it. So one of the other big reasons why I'm pushing to share this episode is because I'm a chronic oversharer. I can't help it. And a few people have known that I've been going for an ASD and ADHD diagnosis at the end of last year. And a lot of people know that I'm going through perimenopause generally because I show up to like workshops or murals and people are like, "You're right." And I'm like, "Oh my God, perimenopause." And they're like, "Whoa." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know." Um, so I'm very open about it. And so people have been checking back in and they're like, "Oh, you were going through the process. Can I ask how it went?" Because I think maybe I need to go and get a diagnosis. And so a lot of people have been asking me about this. And in the last week, I've had 3 different people from 3 separate parts of my life ask me to share more. And it's not just been a how'd it go? It's been and then what happened? And then what happened? And then what did you do? And then what do you do here? And then how did you do that? And then who do I ask for that? And so they've been really genuinely asking for their own story, like to build their own story. So I'm going to share it here. And if people keep asking, I'm just going to send them to this podcast episode so I don't have to keep reliving it because I genuinely am still in the thick of it, which is one of the other reasons why I was like, no, don't do the episode because I don't have all the answers yet because I'm still stuck in the middle of it. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel now, though. So I feel like I'm kind of I've been flipping around in the mud puddle and now I'm starting to kind of crawl my way out now. That's what it feels like. Maybe not today, but in general, it feels like I'm starting to crawl my way out. So a lot of women, all women are going to go through this, anyone with a uterus, but a lot of women are now connecting the dots with later diagnosis of ADHD and ASD. They're either hitting perimenopause and it's just all bubbling to the surface because your mask just falls off in perimenopause. Or they're getting their children diagnosed and they're sitting there with their children answering the questions in their head. They're sitting there going, oh my God, this is me. Oh my God, this is me. And so this late diagnosis, I know it feels like everyone around you is getting diagnosed, but they are, it's happening. Um, so perimenopause actually amplifies neurodiverse traits. I did not realize this until my GP told me. She did not tell me once. She told me many times. I'll tell you about that later. And many high functioning women that have been masking so well for decades hit perimenopause and the mask just falls off and it's not there anymore. And you're just left with like the real version of you and you don't know how to present in front of people because it's like your body can't remember how to mask anymore and you just show up as this weirdo. That's what it feels like for me. I'm not saying that you are weirdos, but I feel like a weirdo and I can't hide my weirdness anymore. Oh, great time to have a public platform like a podcast. Oh shit. Great timing, Sarah. So creative women and entrepreneurs especially are really vulnerable to these creative burnouts, also super vulnerable to neurodivergencies, because of the way that our brain works. So if you have this really, I'm not saying that all creatives are neurodiverse. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying that neurodiverse people, ASD, ADHD, have really creative ways that their brains think. Like they just can think outside the box. And so a lot of these people go into creative fields. Um, so I think a lot of my listeners will kind of be like, whoa, yeah, that could be me. Hence the reason why I'm doing the episode. I have always been such a capable, high-functioning person. I've built my business. I've painted murals around the world. I've raised a family. I've run workshops. But behind the scenes, I've also been working extremely hard just to function. And I have this is my thought process around people, right? I assume everyone is equal. Like I am equal to my next door neighbor. I'm equal to my husband. I am equal to my son. I am equal to our local councillor. I'm equal to the guy that owns a fish and chip store. I'm equal to Donald Trump or our prime minister. We are all equals because we are human. Everyone is an equal, no matter their color, their gender, that is how my brain works. Everyone is equal. And I also assume that everyone is the same as me. So I assume that everyone goes to social outings and does their best to put their best face on because that's all you see. Everyone happy and social and doing well. And I assume that everyone else comes home and is then in the fetal position and crying or can't have anyone touch them or come near them. And then they have to go to bed and then they wake up the next day ready to do it again. So I assumed everyone does that. I thought that was normal. Apparently it's not. I assume that everyone's brain was like constantly whirring like crazy, like a constant monologue in your head of like do. And my husband's trying to tell me about his day, and I'm like, pew, don't forget to put the rice on the grocery list. And then you've got to, oh, don't forget you've got to put the USB in your son's bag for his rehearsal for his, don't forget to congratulate about his rehearsals. And like it's just like a constant. And I thought everyone's brain did that. And so I thought everyone was just like me, which means that I'm normal, everyone else is normal. No, that's not it. That's not how it works. Uh, so let's look at some statistics, which are also a major reason why I'm doing this episode as well. Um, I think it's really important to open up this conversation, because I'm just going to give you some statistics and I don't like them and I'm not here to make you worry. That's not what I'm here for. And I'm not here to be like, woe is me, poo poo poo. I do have light at the end of the tunnel. You know me. If you've been listening to this episode, like this podcast, you know that there's always actionable items at the end and there's always ways to make things more awesome. But I do need to tell you, and this is why we need to take it seriously. In 2023, women aged between 50 and 54 had the highest suicide rates, according to data from Suicide Prevention Australia. I'm going to say that again. Women aged 50 to 54 had the highest suicide rates. From 2024 to 2025 financial year, the median age at divorce for women was 44 years, according to data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. 44 years is the general age for divorce. Now, I'm not saying that perimenopause has caused both those statistics, but is certainly a bloody cog in the turning shit show of your 40s. This is why we need to talk about it so that people know that there is support out there. There is light at the end of the tunnel, that they are not alone. And it feels like a very alone space to be in, let me tell you. There's also a huge misdiagnosis of ADD, ADHD, ADD, and ASD women. And the reason for this is that the criteria for ADHD and ASD were both based off men or males or boys. So the way that ADHD and ASD looks in boys is different to the way that it looks in girls or females. So the criteria never really fit fast. So let's talk about my personal story. Could try super hard not to cry because it's still a bit of a shit show. So when I really started to struggle was the beginning of last year. I came into the year, and I've spoken about this before on the podcast. Came into the new year, and usually in the new year, I'm like, yeah, January, let's do like goal setting and plans for the year and like imagine how awesome it's going to be and like vision boards and all the things that I coach. I did. But beginning of last year, I was like, oh, can't even, no. So I didn't set any goals, which made me really paranoid. I was like, oh gosh, how can you be a coach of artists but not follow your own advice? That's really poor form, Sarah. I thought, oh, just give myself a break now. We'll do mid-year goal setting. It'll be right. I was like, this doesn't feel like me. And I was exhausted. I'd like wake up every morning and I felt like I had like 50% battery. And I was like, but I think I slept okay. Like, I don't understand why I'm like so low on energy. I was getting upset about weird things. Like, I would just have days where nothing was like necessarily upsetting me, but I was just really sad and I would just cry and cry and cry. I had things in my life. Everyone has things in their life that could be triggering them. Like my cat, Lily, was coming to the end of her life. She was unwell. She had diabetes. So that was a daily needle that I was giving her and as a weight. And I knew the end of her life was coming. I couldn't imagine a life without her. So trying to process that. And I was like, oh, I'm just really sad about that. That's what's happening. I'm super sad about Lily will be passing soon. And that's what but no, it was more than that. Weird symptoms were happening. Like my sleep was lighter than it usually, like I'm a light sleeper. Ever since I've had my son, I think most moms would say this, ever since I've had my son, I've been a light sleeper, but this was like super light. I was waking up at like 3:14 every morning and I'd wake up and I was awake. That was me. I was awake for the day. So I'd just get up and go. So I wouldn't stay at other people's houses. I hated, like, we had like a friend's hens night and I was so anxious about it. I'm normally anxious about social things anyways, but I was super anxious about it because there's a sleepover at this hotel and I knew I'd be up at 3 o'clock. So I just got up at 3 o'clock and left. Last year I put on 7 kilos in 7 months and I really didn't do a huge amount different. I did injure myself doing CrossFit. I did a deadlift and hurt my SIJ and my lower back. But I was still going to gym. Like I was still doing gym. I was just doing modified exercises. And that injury did not heal by itself. That was another thing that I was like, wait a minute. This is the first injury I've ever had in my life. And had a lot of injuries in my life, trust me. This is the first one that hasn't just healed itself, which was weird. So I had to go and see like a sports doctor and then go see a physio and all that kind of stuff. And then I put on all this weight. And I was like, oh, that's not like me. Like normally I put on like a kilo or two and I'm like, okay, Sarah, let's put a stop to this. And I could not put a stop to it. I was like, I tried fasting, but almost passed out a few times. So that just did not work for me that time. It had worked previously in my 30s. So all these things were going on and I was like, what is going on? And then I just like all I wanted was chocolate. Like the craving for chocolate was absurd. And I don't tend to binge eat at all. Like I just don't. I don't binge consume anything really. But this need for chocolate was absurd. It could have explained a bit of the weight gain. But it was very unusual for me to want chocolate that much. But like normally a few days before my period, but this was like all the time. Anyways, winter came and I went through the usual burnout. It's like my Easter burnout. And I was like, oh God, I feel stupid. Like every year I feel stupid. How can I not see it coming? How can I not prevent it? I'm like a grown-up adult. I'm a 43-year-old woman. How could I not see this coming, prevent it from happening? And it just happened again. I hit the burnout and then I was stuck in bed and it was just an absolute shit show. And then it would get to like nighttime and I wasn't able to put words together properly. Like I couldn't remember simple words like plate or paper towel or so I couldn't quite get a full sentence out of my mouth. And then I started stuttering at nighttime, particularly if I was tired. Like I've never stuttered, but I was like, couldn't get my sentences out and I was stuttering over word. Like it was just, I was like, uh-oh, what's happening to my brain? Weird things like I'd get really itchy ears, and then the week before my period, I'd get really itchy head. And I was like, have I got nits or have I got dandruff? And I had my husband check me many times. I didn't have either. Apparently, low estrogen can give you an itchy scalp. So, and it's like insanely itchy. Like I'm in a meeting and I'd like have to scratch it. Like it's bad. But anyways, so all this like really weird, and I could just go on and on and on for ages about all these weird little things that kept happening. But the low energy was what I struggled with the most. Like I'm used to being like, pew, let's do all the things. But I was like, I can't do any of the things. And I was talking to one of the artists, I think this was about March last year. I was talking to one of the artists and she looked flat. And I was like, are you all right? So she's one of the artists in our group coaching program. She's like, oh, I've had to go off some of my hormones for some reason. I was listening, but that was a year ago. And now like my memory's gone. It's, I don't know what happened to it. I think perimenopause took it. And then she started to explain about perimenopause. And so I was like, okay, we need to talk about this at length. So then I spoke to her separately and she went through everything. And I was like, oh my God, this is what I'm going through. So if it weren't for Imelda, thank you, Imelda. I hope she doesn't mind me mentioning her on the podcast. But if it weren't for her, I would have just thought that I was going insane slowly by myself over here in the corner, too scared to talk to anyone about it in case I lost my business. So thank goodness for that, because Imelda encouraged me to go see my GP. And I didn't like my GP at the time. So I went and found a GP that specialized in women's health. And that one step there, if you take anything away from this podcast, let it be find a doctor that listens to you. And if you keep going through doctors and they push you out the door or they try and dismiss you or they think that they know what you need when you know what you need and you're trying to advocate for yourself and they talk over the top of you, go and find a new GP. And it might take you 7 different GPs until you find the right one. There are GPs out there that specialize in women's health. And yes, they might cost a little bit more, but I promise you, this GP, if it weren't for her, I wouldn't be doing this podcast, that's for sure. So I went and saw her and I explained to her all these symptoms. But one of the issues that I had when I was trying to, you go into this GP office and you've got like a 15-minute or half-hour appointment, whatever it is, and you need to kind of get it all out and tell them what's happening. But there's so much going on that doesn't fit and that is weird, and you just can't seem to explain it all, and you want to make sure they know it all so they can help you the best that they can. And it just feels like my brain was like white noise, and I was just like, am I telling you the right stuff? It's all happening. And it's so if you take a second thing away from this episode is write down your symptoms. So I'm going to give you a link to a blank bullet journal, and I want you to download it and put all your symptoms in there and track them. Track all your symptoms. I'll talk about this a little bit further in the podcast, but that's number 2. Number 1, get a good GP. Number 2, track your symptoms. So I told her all of this, crying. Lucky her. I went and saw her 4 months in a row. Every time I saw her, crying my eyes out. So she put me onto estrogen and progesterone, and that's when I was on the lowest dose of both, but we realized that progesterone, I have an intolerance to it, synthetic progesterone. So what happens to me is I just kind of freak out. It's like the anxiety is overwhelming. So I had taken my son down to, and it was around Easter because it was Easter holidays, because I had signed him up for a coding camp. And so I took him down to Brisbane, and I was like, it'll be awesome. I'm on holidays this week, so we'll book a hotel. I'll take him to his coding camp, and I'm going to go to my favorite shopping center in Brisbane because I have this really cool store there. And so I dropped him off, and then I got stuck in the car park, and I was like upset and crying. So I called my brother, and he talked me down, and he was like, it'll be okay, it'll be okay, it'll be okay. So, okay, let's get to this shopping center. So I drove over the other side of town to this shopping center, and I got there, and I had such insane levels of anxiety. I just sat outside the shopping center in my car for 2 hours sobbing because I couldn't physically get myself out of the car to get into the shops. I was so overwhelmed, like even in the car park, I was sensory overloaded with all the people and all the cars and all the energy, and it was too much, and I was just a sobbing mess. I couldn't do it. And so I just drove straight back and picked my son up from coding camp. So that was not a fun time. So I spoke to my doctor about that. So we halved my progesterone dose. But this means for me, again, I'm not a medical professional. I'm just telling you my experience. I was on the lowest dose of estrogen and then halve the lowest dose of progesterone. So I'm very sensitive to medications. And so that means that I now have to go for a scan to ensure that the lining of my uterus isn't getting too thick, because the progesterone prevents the lining uterus from getting super thick. So that's the next fun thing on my list of things to do this month. And that super feels like an overshare. So, but I'm just letting you know, this is what I know. So I finally found a bit of a rhythm with the estrogen and the progesterone. It took about 2 months to kind of feel okay with it, but my energy levels were still like rock bottom. And so I did my own research. I listened to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot of books. I read a lot of research papers online. I've read a lot of Reddit forums. I know that people poo-poo Reddit, but oh my goodness, it's so good to hear other people's experiences. Hence the reason for this episode. So I did all this research, and from what I could find out, the testosterone is kind of like a battery pack, like it just gives you a bit more energy. So I went back to my GP and said, I would like testosterone too, please. And in Australia, you can't get testosterone unless you have actually hit menopause. Obviously, menopause is only 1 day. That's like exactly 1 year since your period stopped. And I have not hit menopause. And because I've not hit menopause or thereafter, I can't get testosterone. So it has to be off-brand, which means that it costs me an arm and a leg, which is great. But anyways, I started testosterone, and I started taking the lowest dose, and it was very bizarre. It felt like it changed the dynamic in our household. Like I felt like before I was taking it, I was a lot softer. Yes, I did cry a lot more. And I almost felt like a a soft little kid that needed cuddles all the time. And then I started taking testosterone and I felt like, I don't know, this is weird, but I felt like the boss of the house again. Like I'd step straight back into I'm capable, I can do it. Like I felt like a man. Let's just say it out loud. I felt like a man. No, I wasn't getting facial hair. No, I wasn't punching holes in walls. These were the things that I was told to watch out for is facial hair and aggression. I wasn't either of those. But the dynamic in our household changed and I did not like it. I wanted to be a bit softer. So I ended up, and I spoke to my husband about this, and even he could notice it. So I halved that dose as well, and that seems to be working, and that's been working for like the last year. Um, but again, this is just my story. But it did bring back my energy. It's not like I don't think it's ever going to bring it back to like what I had in my 20s and 30s. That's never going to happen again. But it does bring it back. I wake up in the morning, some mornings, and I'm like, yes, let's do this. So that's good. So for me, testosterone worked really well. So now I'm on lowest dose estrogen, half the lowest dose progesterone, or except for the last couple of days, and half the lowest dose testosterone. But still, I was going in and seeing my doctor and still crying my eyeballs out and going, I can't do this, I can't function, it's not. And so every time that I saw her, she was like, have you thought about getting an ASD or ADHD diagnosis? And every time I'm like, no, why bother? I don't need to be on NDIS, I don't need support, I'll be fine. And the next time she's like, Sarah, have you thought any more about the diagnosis? And I was like, it costs so much money, it takes so much time, so much energy, why would I? And then go back the next time. She's like, Sarah, have you thought any more about it? I was like, please tell me more about it. So, yes, it does cost money. I think my diagnosis cost around about $2,000 in total. You pay each session. You can spread the sessions out if money is an issue. You can spread them out over a certain amount of time so that you can save up for each of your sessions, I think. But and then also you pay for the report at the end. I didn't end up getting the report because I knew that I wouldn't need it for NDIS. I just needed the diagnosis for myself. I guess if I needed the report, I could probably go back, but I don't think I would. I'm not going for NDIS or anything. That's National Disability Incentive Scheme. No, incentive doesn't seem like the right word. National Disability. Anyways, so I said to her, okay, fine, let's do this. She had a psychologist that she recommended. I spoke to my normal psychologist who I see every month and have seen for like the last 5 years. The first conversation I had with my own psychologist was, I'm about to go and spend $2,000 to get this diagnosis. I know that you are not in the space to be able to diagnose me. She's not qualified to do that. But I said, obviously, you have a good understanding of ASD and ADHD. I said, would you suggest it would be a good idea to go down this path? Because the last thing I want to do was go down this path, spend $2,000, and then go, nope, neurotypical, nothing wrong with you. You're just super crazy. And she just went, I think you should go down this path. So I was like, okay, cool, let's do this. Because there was a lot of me in my own head going, no, 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 that's normal. Everyone else is like that. You know, that thought that I have, everyone's the same. Everyone's the same as me. Everyone's the same. Everyone's equal. And constantly back and forth before the diagnosis, I was like, no, this is normal, Sarah. Everyone else is like this. There's nothing going on with you. You just, everyone else has a hard time doing this. Everyone else has a hard time doing that. It's not just you. So it was a constant back and forth in my head, which is very exhausting in itself. So my psychologist recommended a psychologist that does diagnosis, and I ended up going with her because one, she was more affordable. Two, she was happy to not do the report, which meant that I could save some money. And she was highly recommended. So, and I'm glad that I did that. One thing I'm glad one thing I wish that I didn't do was we kind of crammed it all into 1 month. So we had like 1 week where there was 2 sessions, another week where there was like 3 sessions, and the month of that diagnosis was really tough. So my husband was away in Nepal, trekking, and so it's just me and my son at home, and each of the sessions are different. So the first session Um, no, I'm going to try and remember. This was like November last year. So you think I would remember it really well. Um, but because I'm in perimenopause, I don't remember anything. Like I'm surprised I even remembered to put clothes on this morning. That's what it's like. But so there's 6 sessions. The first one I think is kind of like an overall, like why are you here? What do you want to get from this type of session? And then they send you forms, a million forms to form it. And because she was doing ASD and ADHD at the same time. Um, and I didn't think I had ADHD. I kind of suspected that I had ASD. My dad has a lot of ASD traits. Um, and I was trying to dissect whether I had picked up these traits from him or whether these traits were me. And so I was trying to connect some dots. And then my husband is a support worker, so he works with ASD clients, but they're all male. And my husband's like, no, I don't think you've got ASD. But he's only seen that in his male NDIS clients. So there would be different levels. So it was a lot of back and forth and research, and it was very life consuming going through this whole process. And this is going to sound really weird, but we watch a lot of TV shows with ASD characters in them. Um, there's that Dating on the Spectrum, and there's another TV show. Oh, I can't remember it. I'll try and find it and put it in the show notes, but it's about a young ASD fella, just trying to make it through high school, and it's just his family dynamic and everything. And it's just such a heartwarming, sweet series to watch. And it's not real life, it's like a sitcom type thing. So we watch a lot of these types of TV shows, and because they just feel good, like they're feel good TV shows. And I could see so much of myself in these characters, and I felt like what they were doing made more sense than what I saw other people doing. And I'd get really jealous of their special interests. And I was like, wish I had a special interest like trains. Trains seem really interesting. Maybe I could get into trains. And I just want to be in their life. I don't know, it sounds weird that I shouldn't be comparing myself to like TV shows. But anyways, such a chronic oversharer. Anyways, keep moving forward, Sarah. So the reason why I went is I could see a lot of ASD traits in myself. I took things quite literally. I was constantly in my head about social situations. I was getting overstimulated a lot. And this is throughout my entire life. Like I remember one of the things I think back now that I have the diagnosis is how much easier my life could have been if I had the correct tools, or how many more experiences I could have had. Don't get me wrong, I've had a great life. But, I played roller derby for Australia. And so our team went over to Canada for the World Cup. And so it's a big week. Like a lot of the teams stayed in the same hotel. I was sharing a room with one of my teammates. And so I was constantly around people, which is overstimulating in itself. And I needed to show up for the team and be a team player. So we had like a spa. We all tried to cram into a spa. Great photos from it. I tried to cram into the spa, but it was around people. And then we go to dinner together around people. And then we go to training the next day at a massive big stadium that like echoed, and there were other teams training at the same time. And then there was the pressure of the actual tournament. And then we'd show up for the tournament, and there were like crowds of people, and there was like screaming and cheering, and there was just and there was whistles, and I played every single game of the tournament, not bragging, but just saying, played every game of the tournament. And I just needed to hold it together because I felt like one of the leaders of the team, because I've been playing for one of the longest in that team. And we got to the end of the tournament, and I just crumbled. Like I went to the backstage area and just was hysterically crying. And my coach came over and was like, it's okay. We came fourth. I was upset that we came fourth and we couldn't bring home a medal. And he was like trying to calm me down. And I was like hysterical. I was like, this is over the top. Like even I knew this was over the top, but I couldn't stop it. And then the next day, the rest of the team went to Niagara Falls, and they went to a Maple Leafs game. And I was just so overstimulated and depleted. Like I had nothing left, and I missed out on seeing Niagara Falls, and I missed out on seeing the Maple Leafs play, and I just feel like I miss out on a lot of things. And the same thing happened, I played for my league, and we went to nationals down in Adelaide, and we played. I was the captain of the team, and so I had to hold my shit together, hold the team together, manage everyone's emotions, and it was crazy busy. And we had not just our team and our support staff, but we had like a whole cheerleading group that traveled with us. Like, it was a lot. There was a lot of people, a lot of noise, a lot of pressure. And it got to the end of that tournament, and our team went out for lunch the next day. And I hadn't drunk any alcohol like 3 months leading up to it because I wanted to be peak performance. And we went to this lunch, and they forgot. So everyone ordered, but they forgot my meal. And I just sat at the table crying, like sobbing, because that was it. I had nothing else. And so these things, I'm like, what are you doing, you weirdo? If I just had a diagnosis when I was earlier, I could have put tools into place to support myself better throughout my life. Like, I could have seen Niagara Falls. I could have, given myself a break in some way during these tournaments. And so it just makes me sad for that. But I've totally have digressed of where I was going. Let's get back to the process. So 6 weeks of sessions, or 6 sessions. You can do them over 6 weeks. We can spread it out further. Or you can bring them all together, whatever it is. Talk to your psychologist that is treating you. So the first one, and then they send you all the forms after the first session. I freaking love forms, man. I will fill out. If I could have a job that filled out forms, I'd be like the happiest person alive. Love forms. And then my husband had some forms to fill out. And then so we filled them all out and sent them back in. So she got a lot of information from that. And then the second session was about, I think it was about my childhood. And so I had to bring in all my school report cards. And then the next session she did with my dad, and it was just like a telehealth session. And my dad was quite nervous about it. I could tell because he kept messaging me about it and being like, it's tomorrow, right? At this time, right? Is she going to call me on the phone, or is she going to call me on the mobile? Like, all these weird questions. So he was nervous. And I said to her that I was super nervous about it too. But when I was talking to her, she said, it's really valid for you to be nervous. Everyone is nervous about their parents doing the parent session, particularly as adults, because if your parents had thought that something was out of place when you were a child, they would have had you assessed, or they would have had you go to see a doctor, or they would have done something. So that's number one. So chances are they're going to think everything was normal as a child. Second thing, a lot of these neuro differences generally come from your parents. So you were probably acting as they acted as a child, but they probably have ASD and or ADHD too. So they figure the way they acted as a child was normal, and the way you acted as a child, like them, normal. So they don't know the difference. And that very much came across. My dad was just like, yep, she was a happy child. Yep, she was a happy child. Yep, she was a happy child. All my report cards were like, not meeting her full potential, pretty much from like grade 1 to grade 12, not meeting my full potential. But I know a lot of ADHD adults that are now getting diagnosed, their report cards were coming back with disturbing other kids, won't sit still. Mine was not like that at all. I was very quiet, shy. I had 1 or 2 friends through school, and in high school we had a nice group of friends. But other than that, I did not disturb other people. I did not bother other people. I wasn't like up out of my seat. So anyways, that's a fun process. And then you have to try and remember back to your childhood, which is always impossible. Um, and then you have to go through another appointment is you go through different tasks. So they have these different activities that you do. It's very ironic that, like, I remember one of the tasks I was doing and I was like, I am gonna nail this, because I know they do these with kids as well as adults. And I was like, this is a kid's task. I'm gonna nail this. And I was so concentrated on the task. And it wasn't even what she was bothered about. She was looking at other stuff. And I was like, oh, I failed the other stuff. And then another appointment was talking about my relationships now, like how I get on with like friends and, how often do you talk to them? How often do you see them? What do you talk about? Looking at my relationship with my husband, looking about my home life, and my relationship with my son, looking at like, she was like, do you have like things at home just yours and you don't let anyone touch it? I was like, no, not really. Just like a favorite knife that only I can use. And like my cups are my cups, so no one can use those, but like that's normal. And then like I got my own bowl, like I have a Hello Kitty bowl, it's just mine, no one uses that. And like my spot on the couch, no one sits there. Okay, well, yeah. And so when we are going through all these questions, I was like, oh my God, I think I'm a really bad friend. Oh my God, I think I'm a really bad wife. I think I'm a really bad mum. And that's really hard to have that realization and be like, oh shit, this is not normal. I thought all this stuff, I thought everyone had their own knife at their own homes. I thought everyone had their own stuff that they didn't let anyone else touch. I thought that was like, that's normal, right? And then you go through all this and you're like, oh shit, that's not normal. It's not normal to not see your friends for like 6 months and then to just send a text message here and there. Like, apparently that's not like normal. Um, and so I came out of this appointment going, fuck, that's shit. You know what's ironic is that I came out of that appointment and I couldn't even call my husband to be like, oh, I'm sorry, I think I'm a shit wife because these are all the things that I'm doing and I didn't realize that was an ASD trait and I didn't realize that probably makes things harder for you because he was up like halfway up a mountain in Nepal and I couldn't call him. So I don't suggest going through this process by yourself. It's not fun. I was lucky that I did have a friend that I was talking to at the time who's a very good friend of mine. We only see each other like once every 6 months. She only lives like half an hour down the road. And I message her and I'm like, oh shit, I think I've been a shit friend. And she's like, no, this is the type of friendship I like. And so what I've realized now is that pretty much all my friends are on the spectrum and or ADHD. And they all like this weird dynamic of the relationship, which to us is not weird. It's what friendships are, and it keeps us safe and comfortable and happy and joyful. But if you look from a neurotypical eye, it could be a bit weird. So that's my realization now. But at the time, I felt shit. So don't go through the process by yourself and maybe don't cram 3 sessions into 1 week. That's not ideal. While solo parenting, while your husband's away, it's not ideal. So, gosh, this has been a long part of the story. I feel like I'm talking for ages. Yeah, it's because I have been talking for ages. Wow, long episode. So went through that process and then I came in and she said, okay, I'll give you my findings. So she went through all the results from the questionnaires and my husband's answers showed that I was kind of, she said like not in the diagnosable category, but he'd still marked me as ASD in like 3 of the category. Like it was bizarre. So it basically showed me that I was masking in front of my husband. So I wasn't showing him the true me, which also made me really, really sad. Because I had then marked myself in some of the categories as like 100%, which is bizarre as well to me. So the result was I have level 1 ASD and inattentive ADHD. And when she told me that, I picked up the level 1 ASD because I was fairly certain that that's what that diagnosis was going to be going through the assessment. But I didn't hear her say inattentive ADHD. So that was kind of ironic in that I missed it. She had to say it again. And then I went, oh, inattentive ADHD. Didn't expect that one. So, and she said that one was tough to diagnose because the symptoms of perimenopause are very similar to ADHD in the way that it presents in women. So she said that was a little trickier to diagnose. But I do see how in my earlier years and my younger years that shone through, particularly having been diagnosed with depression and anxiety for pretty much the age of 16 and beyond. Every time I'm all over the shop, they go, oh, it's anxiety. That's what it is. No, that's not what it was. It was, I have ASD. Please put me through the diagnosis process so that I could have had an easier life. That's what it is. So I now look back on the really hormonal times around like when I was like 16, 17, 18. I really struggled then. I struggled at the end of my 20s, struggled postpartum, really struggled postpartum. It would have really helped to know then. I think I could have been a lot gentler on myself and had a lot more tools in my back pocket as opposed to just beating myself up. Yeah, that was tough. So after getting the diagnosis, I was a little bit relieved for a second, and then I was angry and sad. So for about 6 weeks, I was really angry and upset, and I'd get really sad, mainly for the younger version of myself. Like, I just wish I had known earlier. So if you are in your 20s and 30s and you're listening to this and you're like, whoa, some of this resonates, you can advocate for yourself. You don't need someone to point it out. And even me as a 44-year-old, I still had someone point this out. Mika, who listens to this podcast and who is a good friend of mine here on the Sunshine Coast and who is an artist and a wonderful muralist, after she listened to the first ever podcast episode, she called me and so gently, not at all, said, have you thought about getting a diagnosis? And I was like, no. And she's like, all you'd have to do is give the psychologist your first episode of the podcast and they could just figure it out from there. I was like, yeah, nah. So now I would like to apologize to Mika for dismissing her because she was doing it for my best interests, and I wish I had listened to her a bit earlier, but it would have only given me maybe an extra year of knowing. But if you are a lot younger, you can go through the process and you can get the tools that you need and the support that you need. So please do that. You don't have to wait for someone like Mika or someone like, I think I've spoken about this on the podcast before, a young 16-year-old at a school that you've only met 3 times who points out that you've got ASD because you keep wearing the same clothes every day, and because of the way that you talk. And I was like, ooh, this kid sees something in me that I am completely oblivious to. Anyways, you don't need the external people to tell you. You can advocate for yourself. And that will be the third thing I want you to take away from this podcast episode, is to advocate for yourself. Research, educate yourself, and then advocate, because you are the only person who is going to advocate for yourself as well as you possibly can. Yes, you can go to doctors and GPs and specialists and psychologists and all these types of things, but you know you better than anyone else. And particularly if you've been masking for most of your life, you will have been hiding a lot of yourself from people, so they just won't know. So it is your job to do the research and educate yourself and stand up and ask for what you want, both in perimenopause, ASD, ADHD. You need to be your biggest supporter. I digress again. Gosh, this soapbox is pretty high standing on it. So I went through that process, came out the other end, and after 6 weeks of, pretty much sitting in the mud and being angry and pissed off and frustrated, I kind of went, okay, well, let's make the changes. I felt like my hormones had kind of settled down a little bit. I kind of felt like I had a bit of more control over my hormones. I could feel when my estrogen was low. I was tracking all of my symptoms. I could kind of manage things. I felt a bit more in control of the hormonal type. And I'd be like, okay, cool. My scalp is getting itchy. I'm getting really agitated and irritable and frustrated. okay, I know where I am in my cycle. I know what's happening. I just need to do this. So that was felt managed. And then I was like, okay, well, one of the number one reasons why I wanted the diagnosis was so that I could prevent this year cycle of burnout. I'm done doing this ASD burnout. It's absurd. I'm a grown up. I have my own business. I have the space and capacity to be gentle on myself and prevent this burnout. So I worked with the psychologist on coming up with some strategies for myself to try to prevent this burnout. And I'll share some of them in a little bit. I think that's about all from the ASD and ADHD diagnosis. Yeah, and that's how I felt after. Yeah, I think that's about it. I'll share with you what I'm doing now in a moment. But I found that having that diagnosis really validating, but also confronting at the same time. One of the other reasons why I wanted the diagnosis is because I do go into a lot of schools and I do run a lot of workshops. I work with a lot of students who have ASD and ADHD, and I wanted to be an advocate. I'm not the type of artist that's going to, add it to my bio on social media and talk about it constantly. But I do want to be the person. I understand that I'm in a really privileged position in that I have an audience and I have a business and I have artists that I mentor and I have students that see me all the time. And I want to be a person standing up here that has ASD and ADHD, and I'm still moving forward, and I'm still making a good income, and I'm still supporting my family, and I'm still crumbling a little bit in the inside. But this is me showing you what's going on. And these are the steps that I'm taking to make things better for myself. And I hope that they will help you too. So, gosh, I'm really going off and like it's like an octopus with like all these tentacles, and I'm going off and up and down each tentacle. Oh, Lordy. This is the part where I talk about hope and what I'm doing and what is improving. So, being on the medications, the progesterone to testosterone and estrogen have really leveled things out a lot more. But obviously, these all vary throughout the cycle of each month. But I can now, because I've been tracking my symptoms, figure out what's going on. And then with the ASD and ADHD, I'm still developing and testing tools and techniques. But a lot of things have really improved. So I've lost the weight that I put on, thank goodness, because that is not a good feeling to be 7 kilos heavier. No one likes that. My sleep has improved a lot more, although it's not back to its normal. I still sleep extremely lightly, but I have stopped waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning, which is, thank goodness, very good. I've been and seen a nutritionist. So when I went to the GP and told her that I put all the weight on, she sent me to a nutritionist who helped me with my diet. So a lot of women will get told when they're in this age bracket and going through perimenopause to increase their protein intake. I only have one kidney, so I'm not meant to increase my protein intake too much. So she just checked my food and what I was eating, and I'm eating the correct protein for a one kidney human. But she did say to increase my fiber. As soon as she said that, as soon as she said increase your fiber, my first thought was, oh, I'm an old person. Because every time I think about increasing fiber, I think of like old people not being able to poop. My poop is just fine. Don't worry about that. But apparently, I've still got to increase my fiber. Apparently, it's a thing. So I do have her support. I've got 5 more sessions with her over the next year. So I'll keep checking in with her to make sure my nutrition is sound. And I have been trying to reduce my overwhelm. So reducing overwhelm. Actually, I might talk to you this in a little bit further down. I've also been trying to plan out my work schedule a bit gentler on myself. So if I have a mural project on that I know is going to take 2, 3 days, I make sure I then have a day off at the end, which I would never used to do. I used to preach it, but I would never actually do it. But now I don't really have a choice because I have no energy left. And I just do the school drop off and then go back to bed. So that's great news. I'm having Friday off because I'm painting a mural all this week. And then if I have a workshop, and this has been the biggest business change for me in that I'm very fortunate that I have a workshop that I run that I know like the back of my hand. I've been running it for 15 years now in schools, and it's the stencil workshop. And I love running it. Yes, I use the same jokes year after year, but I think that the teachers like it more than the students do. But it's easy to do. I show up. We don't have to have a forced outcome. It's not like the mural needs to be produced. So there's no pressure. I just have to show up, put my bubbly mask on, and be like this outgoing, extroverted, loud artist. And I'm still able to put that mask on, which I'm very thankful for. But at the end of a day-long workshop, I'm absolutely cooked. I used to be able to back up workshops day after day. Now I can't. Now I just have to kind of shut down for a day. And I did a day-long workshop a couple of weeks ago. Luckily, it was with a school that I go back to every year. So I'm good friends with the teachers there. And so they kind of know what's going on in the background. And I finished the workshop. And there was only 5 students in the workshop too, which made it a lot easier as well. But we got to the end of the day and I packed the car and I was just saying goodbye to them all and giving them hugs and stuff. And they're like, Sarah, you look cooked. And I'm like, oh my Lord. Like, I've just got nothing left. Just masking for that day absolutely fried me. And it wasn't even the sensory overload of the being in a school because we were like over in the corner. It was just the masking, which is bizarre to me. But anyway, so now if I run a workshop for a day, I have to have a day off, which is okay. If I run a half-day workshop, then I'm going to make sure the second half of the day I don't work or I just do something really light, like clean the studio or maybe throw some paint on a canvas. So that's been fun to do. But I'm very fortunate that the processes with my business I had already set up where if schools need to book me, they can book all online without having to even talk to me. They can look at my calendar, they can book. And there's very little back and forth. And then I have all my supplies in one area so I don't have to, because I get really stressed about forgetting things because I forget everything. But I have them all in like one big box. So I just put the box in my car, show up, run the workshop, have all the supplies, put the box back in my car and come home. So it's just such an easy process to go through because I was very nervous about losing chunks of my business because I did cry in one workshop last year, but my cat had just passed away and the students were just out of control and there was like 28 students and I just couldn't manage that. And I just said I need to go get some spray paint. I locked myself in the storeroom for like 10 minutes and cried. Oh, that wasn't a good day. Anyways, that hasn't happened since. So we're back on track. The overwhelm is real. So I used to be able to write a list of things to do and then just work my way through the list. Now I write a list of things to do and look at the list and cry and get overwhelmed and then I get stuck. So I keep getting stuck on things. My husband will walk around and often find me like sitting on a step somewhere on my phone, stuck. And he's like, "You're stuck again." And I go, "Yes." And he's like, "Okay, come on, let's go. What's your next task?" And I go, "Oh." So my dopamine keeps needing to be filled, which is hard because I'm not used to having to fill my dopamine cup. And unfortunately, my phone is right there and social media is easy to go on. So I spend more time on social media than I ever have in my life, which I don't like. But at least I'm trying to fill my social media with gardening. Which brings me to my next topic, is one of the things that my psychologist suggested to prevent burnout is to have a special interest and to let myself do that special interest for at least half an hour every single day. And then every week, I get to do something fun for myself for at least an hour. And then every month, I have something fun planned. So my special interest is gardening. I didn't know this, but all of a sudden, since I hit perimenopause, my body just wants to garden. That's just it. I've just got to touch dirt, although I don't like the feeling of dirt, but I've got to look at my garden every single day, and I don't know how or why, what is going on, but it works, and it brings me so much joy and happiness and peace and calm and contentment. So I just keep doing it. So for 30 minutes every day, I go out into the garden, and the cats come with me, and they play in the garden and eat the grasshoppers that are eating my garden. And I will tell you anything and everything that you could ever ask about growing a garden in Southeast Queensland. I can tell you about insects and plants and flowers and soil and everything, because that's what I do. Garden and then research gardening. So do that every day, half an hour. If it rains, I get very impatient. There's only so many seedlings I can plant inside. And then each week I try and do something fun for an hour. So my son and I go to gym first thing on Saturday mornings, and then we go and do something fun. So it could be the markets. Sometimes we'll go to the plaza and get our nails done, or what else do we do? Sometimes we go to the beach, just things that are just calming and that aren't at home, because I get overwhelmed at home with renovations. And now I'm going to pause here. So I'm starting to now go, what am I doing? Why am I doing this episode? And my brain is in the background going, just don't publish this, Sarah. Just shut it down now. Just don't. It's absurd, isn't it? Like I have two voices in my head, and one of them's like, don't. Anyways, we'll keep going. We'll persevere. I'll just shush that voice down, and I'll keep going. So, and then every month I plan something that's super fun. So this month we're going on a cruise trip. Woo, cruise. And I've got a week off holidays coming up. So that's exciting too. So I'm trying to do what the psychologist suggested to prevent this burnout. And the burnout usually happens around Easter time. So around about this time of year. And I feel like I'm on the right track to not burn out. I feel still insane, but I feel more balanced than I usually do. I normally get this like weird cortisol churn where I'm like churn, and I like try and rest, but I can't rest. And that's the other thing that I've learned, that as a person with ASD and ADHD, as much as I would like to just lie still and rest and watch a movie, I just can't. My brain cannot. That's not rest to me. Whereas my husband and my son will happily lie down and watch a movie and eat chips. I can't do it. The thought of that freaks me out. My rest is doing something like gardening or cross stitch or Lego, or just doing something while gently moving my body. God, all this digressing, my brain's going to hurt after this episode. So, daily, 30 minutes. Weekly, an hour, something fun. Monthly, something to look forward to. And then next month, I am going to MJ the musical with my son. We're having a night down in Brisbane. It's very exciting. I'm very excited about it. It's going to be very exciting. And the gardening itself, this is the other thing that I've learned, is that all my life I've tried to be such a grown-up, that I do all my chores and do all my adult things, and then I might get to do the fun thing at the end. And most of the time I run out of hours in the day and I don't get to do my fun thing. And I have now switched this, and I get to do my fun thing whenever I feel like doing my fun thing, because I am a grown-up and I get to do what I want to do. So on my lunch breaks, if I'm like, oh, I look out a window and I'm like, it's perfect weather. What am I doing in here? I want to go outside. I do. I just go outside and I go into the garden. I put a timer on my phone, 30 minutes, because if I don't, I'd be out there for 7 hours. Put a timer on my phone and I go out there and I potter around the garden for 30 minutes. And when that timer goes off, I go, oh, I'll leave this here and I'll come back to it after I'm finished work tonight. And then I just go back to work and I feel more energized. I feel more focused. I feel grateful and happy. And then I just get my work done. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I feel like going outside again. Oh, it's 5 o'clock. I can finish work and go outside. So I'm learning that you don't have to do what you think adults are meant to do. You can like do whatever you want to do because you're your own adult. And if that is doing your special interest first thing, do it. I just recommend setting the alarm though, because ADHD and time blindness is like a real thing. So, So that's been immensely helpful. And I reckon that is the number one thing that I've really changed in my day-to-day life. And I can see the impacts of it. The other thing I've done is I've built a small Harry Potter room. So underneath our stairs, when you come down to the studio, because we've had renovations building the studio going on the last 6 months, the place was like an absolute shit show. Every room in our house was a mess because we were cramming things into rooms, and it was chaos, and I was freaking out because there was no routine or stability or normality. I couldn't escape anywhere in the house, and that my house is my safe space, and there was nowhere for me to go in the house where I could just be safe. And so I was like, screw this. So I spent like a weekend and built out underneath the stairs, and I built this little Harry Potter room, and there's like storage underneath it, so I'm not like completely wasting the space. And it's not a waste of space because it's very valuable to me. And I can fit a whole single mattress in there, so I can lie down in there by myself. And I put like a trillion pillows and like really fluffy doona and really fluffy mattress protector. And I painted it black, and it's got like cool wallpaper in there, and it's got lights that I can control so that if I'm overstimulated, I turn the lights down. I can change the colors of them if I'm in a different mood. I've got my books there so I can go in there and read. I've got a shelf with all my cool toys in there. It smells lovely. I bought a lovely candle, and I put it in there, and it makes the whole thing smell lovely. I've got a little bracket that holds my iPad so I can watch a movie if I want to. I've got my special craft project that I'm working on at the time. Right now I'm working on a cat cross stitch. Um, I was previously working on one of those book nooks. Oh my God, they're so much fun, but they're expensive. So I've done one, and it's in there too, just on display. What else? I've like coloring pens in there and a coloring book. I've just got all the things that calm me down. And so after I have a day of workshops and I come home, and my husband and son, who are my husband's got ADHD, they're all like, how was your day? What did you do? What was at school? And I'm like, no. And I just get into my jammies and go downstairs and hop into the Harry Potter room. And the boys are like, okay, mum's not coping. And they normally just bring me tea for my dinner. And I just sit in the Harry Potter room and eat it and watch something on TV. And then I go upstairs and go to bed. And I'm very lucky that I have a very supportive family. They know that I struggle to communicate when I'm not coping very well. So for me to just go into the room, it is like a visual cue for them to be like, mum's overstimulated. Um, so that has been a massive help as well. And I mentioned this before, is tracking symptoms. Now I strongly recommend this for perimenopause, but you can also do this if you're unsure about your ASD, ADHD. So you can put some symptoms down, and things that might pop up for you that you notice are happening here and there, but primarily for perimenopause. So I'm going to put a link in the show notes to a bullet journal page that you can print out in A4, and you just fill it out with the days of the month. So every morning that you wake up, or every night before you go to bed, it's up to you which suits you better. You can track your symptoms. So for me, in my perimenopausal symptom tracker, I have irritability, rage, brain fog, um, tears, like I have like really teary days, pain. So if I have like a really achy body day, anxiety, pretty much anxiety is like every day for me. But sometimes I have like those anxiety days where I can't get out of the car. So then I give it like a double, like full color that one in. What other symptoms are, and you might want to put your own symptoms in there as well. And then I also track my period, and then I track all the medications. So I know a lot of women who are perimenopausal, and they make it to the GP, and they get their script, and they pick up their medication, and they start on it. But these medications are like, change your patch every 3.5 days, and then take the progesterone for 2 weeks of the month, and then take the testosterone daily. And like it, that in itself is overwhelming when you're already overwhelmed with perimenopause. So you can track your medications that you have in there. So you can be like, okay, well, I'm on the patch, so that needs to be taken this day, this day, this, and you can kind of it helps you with the overwhelm of all the shit that's going on. Plus, you might be taking some other things, like you might be like taking vitamin D or those happy mammoth things, or oh my God, what's the other thing? Oh, here we go. I've lost the word. Oh, you might be taking collagen, which is always helpful for when you're starting to lose it and things start to sag. And no, I've lost the word. Creatine. Yes, there you go. For brain health. Obviously, you can tell I didn't take my creatine this morning. I have not been good with that consistency of taking it. Anyways, track all of this in this template that I've set up for you. You will need to fill in your own symptoms and your own medications, but it's there. Try it for a month. Set an alarm on your phone if you keep forgetting to track things. So it might be like 8 p.m. every night, your little alarm goes off and you go, whoop, fill out the tracker. And it gives you back some control. It gives you back some feeling of management, that you know what's going on rather than feeling like your brain is out of control and your body's out of control. So I'm hoping that will help you a little bit, because it really, really helps me. And I've done that. Oh, I've been tracking since September last year was on, oh, yeah, September last year is when I started tracking. And gosh, it gives you a lot of data too, which is really helpful. So what I talk about symptom tracker, I talked about special interest, I talk about sensory space, I've talked about fun first, chores next. I've talked about scheduling space after workshops or any projects that might be a heavy load, like murals. And that's it. Those are the things that I've implemented. I hope that I feel like they're working. There are other little bits and pieces that I will start trying once I feel like I'm on like a nice even keel with this. As I mentioned, I still feel like I'm like sitting in the mud pool. I'm not out of it yet, but I feel like I'm like scooching my way to the edge. I can still feel days where my nervous system is still overloaded, and I can feel the cortisol churning in me, and those are the days that I really struggle to rest. And don't get me wrong, I have days like Friday where just work just completely engulfed everything. And I had someone here cutting stencils with me, which was great to have someone here. Hi, Kate. She also asked me to record this episode too. She's been asking me about the diagnosis process. And so having someone here the whole time, I needed to be switched on the whole time. So I felt like I was masking. So that was exhausting. And then churned through, and then Kate didn't leave until like 5 or 6 at night, and then it was dark. So I didn't get out to the garden on Friday at all. So it was a very early night to bed that night, because I was fairly cooked. But the next day I made sure that gardening was a priority for me. So not all of these tools run smoothly all the time, but I can monitor myself a lot better. So I hope some of these things work for you. Finding that special interest has been really important. And I spoke to a friend of mine the other day she's a really good friend, and she's going through a similar process, and she hasn't been diagnosed, but it's very clear that she also has ASD and ADHD. And I told her about my special interest, and what's crazy to me is that not everyone else loves gardening, and so I'm trying to make everyone else love gardening. I keep sending packets of seeds to everyone just in the hope that they too will love gardening, and then we can talk about it nonstop. So if you love gardening too, hit me up, because then we can talk about it. I love it. I'll send you seeds too. Anyway, I digress. So she messaged me the other day after I had a long chat with her, and she's like, I found my special interest, and it's pottery. Like, how cool is that? So now I'm going to try and find ways that I can connect with her around pottery. But she said that doing a little bit of pottery each day just grounds her. So think about what your special interest is, and what you might be able to do every day and it's, do not turn it into a money-making machine, and do not put it on social media. It is just for you. It is your special interest. Don't put pressure on it at all. I kill most things in my garden, but it still makes me happy. What else have I got? Sorry, I've completely gone off my notes, and this is like the longest podcast ever. So if you have lasted this long, I am super impressed with you. I would assume that you are also in the depths of perimenopause and or diagnosis. So tools for advocating for yourself. If you suspect that you may have ADHD or ASD, talk to your GP. If your GP dismisses you, I heard from someone the other day that their GP said, why bother this late in life? Oh, I got sent into a rage and sent a very, very long email back to this person and said, fuck off that GP and find yourself a new one. Oh Lord, that sent me into a rage. Talk to your GP if you trust them. If you do not trust your GP, find a new one. I had a GP that I was with for about 4 years here on the coast. Lovely fella, like he was a nice fella. There's nothing wrong with him as a human, but he was very rushed in every appointment. And there was a few things that just kind of put me off. And I wish after the first time I had just left, but I didn't. I persisted because finding a new GP is like, you got to go through that, first appointment with them and tell them all the things that's going, like, it's a lot. So I get you need space and time to find that GP, and it takes a lot of energy and time, and I get that. But once you've found your GP, it's worth it. Because this old GP, they found a mass in my abdomen, and he called me on the phone and said, Sarah, they've done the scan, they found a mass. I don't know what to do. That was what he said. I don't know what to do. And I was like, what? Is it cancer? And he said, they didn't say. And I was like, okay, can you refer me to the hospital so that more tests can be done? And he's like, okay, I'm going to refer you to the hospital. They'll do more tests. I'm like, what the hell? Why am I? What the hell? So anyway, don't worry, that was years ago. That was that ganglioneuroma that's just like Gary, the ganglio that's just a blob inside me that's not growing. So, but oh my God, oversharing, Sarah. This is just, I swear, if you're like a genuine listener of this podcast and you listen to every episode, you could probably do my medical history for me to find a new GP. This is crazy. Anyway, I digress for the 97th time this episode. Another time I went to see that GP, he pointed out something on my skin, a little red dot, and he said, let me look at that. And I was like, yeah, cool. Okay, cool. You should look at that. So we got his magnifying glass out and looked really closely. And in my head, I'm like, please don't be skin cancer. Please don't be skin cancer. Please don't be skin cancer. And he looked at it, he's like, this is not skin cancer. I was like, okay, cool. And he's like, but I can't fix that. And I was like, okay, I didn't ask you to. It's not even why I came to this appointment. And he's like, the only way you can do anything about that is to wear makeup. And I was like, no, I don't wear makeup. And he's like, you should. And I was like, and so that was the last appointment that I went there. And then I changed GPs and found a women's health one. So that was great. So, oh my God, I digress so many times. So find a good GP. If you're on the Sunshine Coast, there are some amazing women's health GPs. And yes, I know they cost more. And yes, right in the middle of my perimenopausal shitstorm, I did start an argument with the receptionist about having to pay triple the amount to see the doctor for perimenopause. And then I was yelling down the phone, I know this is so inappropriate, but this is just one of the symptoms of perimenopause. Do men have to pay more? Do they have prostate exams that cost 3 times as much? What do men have to do? Why do women have to pay 3 times as much just to function? Yeah. And then I apologized profusely and brought flowers into the receptionist. I don't know, it just slipped out. It's not me. I'm not confrontational. I'm not a mean person, but I was just so angry. So yes, you do have to pay more, but it's worth it to get the time and the space to talk about all the symptoms and to feel like you're being heard. Learn about masking in women. So educate yourself around ASD in women and ADHD in women and how it presents. So for me, with inattentive ADHD, I'm not bouncing off the walls at all. You will not see me running around in circles. When my 11-year-old son gets excited for something, he jumps on the spot. You will not see me do that. I'll probably piss myself if I did that. My ADHD craziness, I shouldn't say craziness, it's not even attention deficit. I pay attention to freaking everything and get sidetracked by everything. But the like whirring is inside my brain constantly. So I'm the person at yoga when they're doing shavasana and they're like, and calm and quiet and clear your mind. I'm the one there going, oh, I don't think this is a possible task for me. I cannot clear my mind. No, clear. Think of white. And then in that white, I see the grocery list. So it's all inside my brain, which is extremely exhausting, and I get headaches a lot. So educate yourself about masking in women and ADHD and how it presents in women. There are some amazing podcasts that I'm going to recommend in the show notes that you listen to. Obviously, I know you like podcasts because you're listening to this one and you have lasted forever. And find some credible research and resources. So ChatGPT is not a credible resource. It has been known to give incorrect factual information. So find your own research and make sure that it is credible. If you're experiencing perimenopause, track your symptoms. I know, like, if one more person says to me, "Oh, track my symptoms," I'm just not into that stuff. I'm just not into writing stuff down or journaling, or I'm just not into it. I get it, but do it. Figure out a way to do it. Do it on your phone if you're always on your phone. Write it down on this, print out this A4 tracking thing that I've done and do it on that. Like, just do it for yourself. You're not doing it for me. You're not doing it for the doctor. Do it for yourself. It gives you a sense of control. And then if you're like, I just keep forgetting, then set the timer in your phone and remember, and it will become a routine. After like 3 weeks of it, it will just be what you do at 8 p.m. every night, or what you do first thing when you wake up in the morning. Do it. Be better. Oh God, now I'm getting angry again. I think it was that talking about my last GP that's revved me up. Speak to your GP about hormones. They have, a lot of the women's health have special appointments for perimenopause, and it's longer, and they get to, but go in informed. Go in with the research. And this is the other thing, even if you do find an amazing GP, it is your job to still advocate for yourself. Yes, they have a whole amount of knowledge over here. Mind you, they're not really taught that much about perimenopause in medical school. They've had to go do their own, and even then you don't know how much research they've done. But you can advocate for you. So you do the research, you connect the dots, you dive deeper into other research. So if you're diving into, maybe I have ADHD. Oh, why do I get so upset every time someone says anything that is remotely negative about me? Or maybe I have rejection sensitivity disorder. Research that. So only you are going to really start connecting those dots. So every time that I've gone into the GP, I have already done my own research, and I have such a good relationship with her now because lucky her, she gets to see me every month. I go in with my post-it note with all the things that I want to talk to her about, and she knows that I will have researched the absolute bejeebers out of it because I love research. And I, like, when I went in with the testosterone, I was like, I would like testosterone, please. And she's like, look, we can't give you. And I was like, I would like testosterone so that I can do intimate time with my husband. Because I know that in Australia, you need to say that if you want the testosterone. Probably not something I should be sharing on this podcast, but again, oversharing. Oh, Lordy. So you need to do the research. You need to advocate for yourself. I'm going to say this like 1,000 times. It's up to you. You're also allowed to ask questions. You're also allowed to seek second opinions. So if you're not sure, if your doctor's like, okay, we need to send you for this, and you're like, but I don't understand why, and they're not answering the questions, you're not getting the information you need, you can say no and go to another GP. You're also allowed to design a life that supports your well-being. If you're listening to this and some of it resonates with you, I promise you, you are not alone. Many women are quietly navigating these changes while still running a business, raising families, and holding everything together. I'm sharing this very, very long episode so that you feel less alone, so that you learn to advocate for yourself, so you feel supported, so you have some information going in, but you do need to continue researching and advocating for yourself. I hope that you found this episode helpful. I am so sorry it's so long, and I'm so sorry I went off in so many tangents, and I really should have written a script, but it would have taken forever and I would have gotten really upset. I only cried like once, so good job me. I am still in the middle of it as well. So this is not all the answers. This is just my experience so far and what is working for me so far. But let's try and remember the 3 things I asked you to take away. Find a good GP, track your symptoms, advocate for yourself. Oh God, I can't even remember the 3 things I told you to take away from this episode. Anyways, there is an amazing episode if you're in the perimenopausal journey and you're sick of listening to episodes that are telling you what perimenopause is. Oh my God, I'm so sick of being told what it is. I know what it is. What I need is strategies to help me cope. This podcast is very good. It's called Rage Against the Vagine. It's by M. Rossiano, who's an amazing Australian comedian who also has ADHD. And the way that she's put this podcast together, I'm going to put a link in the show notes, is perfect for the perimenopausal neurodivergent brain, because it's not just this is what it is, this is how you, it's not, it's like stories from all these different women, from doctors, from psychologists, from Indigenous, from neurodiverse, from neurotypical, and it's like all these different stories and clippets all put together. And I was like, normally when I listen to podcasts, because of my brain at the moment, it just like floats off. Nope, this podcast keeps your brain occupied because it's all over the shop. I love it, but it makes sense. And I cry every single episode. So don't suggest listening to it at work or on the bus. But I will put that link in the show notes. I think that's everything from today. If you have listened to any of this and it resonates with you and you're not sure the next step, please find yourself a good GP. If you're even stuck with that and it is overwhelming, because I know that can feel very overwhelming and you need support now, if you're in Australia, please call Lifeline. You can call them on 13 11 14. If you are just stuck, call them. If you're triggered by any of the things that I spoke about, please call them. And if you, much like me, don't like talking on the phone, you can text them as well on 0477 13 11 14. If you're in the USA, because half our listeners are in Australia, another chunk of them are in the USA, there is a suicide and crisis lifeline. That is 988. If you need support now, please call them. Otherwise, Salvation Army is always a great group to reach out. There are a number of different supports available to you. I hope that this has helped you. I hope that you have some takeaways. I hope that I haven't just left you in a crying heap or questioning my sanity. Apparently this type of episode is not off-brand for me. Apparently people are used to hearing this stuff from me. So anyways, if I notice my listener count severely dropping, not to worry. Okay, well, I will see you in 2 weeks. I hope you have a good 2 weeks, and I hope that if you're in this space, you take one step forward and let me know about it. Let me know what you thought about this episode. And if you need any help, you're always more than welcome to reach out to me on social media as well. Okay, see ya.